Hey, welcome to Therapy by Gabby. I'm Gabby. I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in the state of Wisconsin, and I talk about things for therapists, therapy goers, and the mental health experience in general. Today, we're going to talk about signs that you might be getting bad therapy. As we're discussing this, let's keep in mind that therapy and therapeutic topics are often very nuanced, and many different therapists offer different therapeutic approaches and styles, and different people benefit from different types of therapeutic approaches. Even though I'm going to be generally speaking about things that could mean bad therapy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is bad therapy. Now, don't get me wrong, there are objectively things that are bad therapy, and there are objectively things that are unethical. Some of the topics we're going to be focusing on today may have a little bit more gray area. All right, let's dive in. Sign number one that you might be getting bad therapy is that your therapist talks too much during the session. So, for example, they might be talking about relevant information, relevant content, relevant psychoeducation about whatever you're bringing to the session. However, there's this misattunement that they're not realizing that that's not what you need in that moment, that you might need more space to be heard or seen, or space for you to vent, or space for just silence and not to say anything at all. Another example could be too much self-disclosure. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a therapist that believes in self-disclosure. I probably share a decent amount about myself with my clients, of course, when relevant. And it's really important that the therapist doesn't hijack the session and then it becomes about them and their life experiences and their feelings. Now, again, I want to emphasize that self-disclosure is not bad. I really believe in self-disclosure, especially when you're working with people who have a history of trauma or they have complex PTSD, when you're doing attachment work. That sort of relational experience can be really, really beneficial for the client's healing and feeling safe in relationships. And also, it's really, really important that the therapist does it intentionally. Something I like to do when I practice self-disclosure with clients is I'll say, is it okay if I share a little bit about my experience with X, Y, and Z, or if I share a little bit about something that I think could be relevant in this case? And if I don't give them that heads up that I'm going to be self-disclosing, after I do self-disclose, I'll check in and say, how was that for you? Did it feel relevant? Did it feel like I was off base about your experience? I want to make sure that that landed well and that it is relevant to the work that we're doing together. So I really appreciate the feedback that you have. Reason number two that you might be getting bad therapy is that therapy feels really superficial. So you go into your therapy session and your therapist asks you how you are. You talk about current life experiences or stressors. They might check in on how your mood is doing. You might talk about some coping skills, but it really feels like you might just be chit-chatting or shooting the breeze or talking about stuff that maybe isn't taking us deeper and peeling back the layers of the patterns and themes and core beliefs in your life that are showing up and creating the challenges that originally brought you to therapy. Again, don't get me wrong. These types of sessions are not bad. I absolutely have these types of sessions with my clients. And also, it's important to take on the position of saying, hey, I'm noticing that it really feels like we're just kind of staying on the top layer, and I want to check in with you and see if you're noticing that as well. I want to know if it's okay if I push us a little bit deeper. I want to know if it's okay if we can start peeling back some of those layers. Now, that's a really difficult place to be in therapy, where we start digging deeper and peeling back the layers. I mean, it's really uncomfortable. We're going to talk about stuff that maybe we don't want to talk about or don't want to remember, or feel things that we're not ready to feel. And of course, I always meet my client where they're at. And also, therapy isn't just about having a safe relationship. That is very important and probably the most important part of therapy. And also, it's my position to nurture and compassionately challenge my clients to move towards the really scary stuff so that they can start to feel better. Reason number three that you might be getting bad therapy. Your therapist is inconsistent and lacks boundaries. Maybe your therapist is inconsistent with showing up for sessions. Maybe they're constantly canceling or late canceling or rescheduling you, and it feels like you're getting canceled on more than you're actually having sessions. There might be lack of emotional consistency. So for example, there might be sessions where you feel like your therapist is really compassionate and open and really listening to you and holding space for you. And other times you might notice that their body language has has maybe shifted or their tone of voice. And it seems like maybe there's been a shift in the way that they experience you or how they care about you or their interest or investment in what you're bringing to that session. Maybe they have practice policies that sometimes they follow and sometimes they don't, which leaves you confused and not knowing what to expect. So for example, maybe they have an attendance policy where if you late cancel, they have a late cancellation fee. And a handful of times they're like, oh, don't worry about it, it's fine. And then maybe it happens again later on and they're like, hey, I'm gonna charge you, like you have to pay this fee. And you're left like, well, wait, like a handful of times you never charge me, now you're gonna charge me, like what's going on? And that can really lead to a rupture in the therapeutic relationship. And of course, this is where we're gonna talk about like objectively, this is when a therapist has poor boundaries, is when they cross that line of having a professional therapeutic relationship with a client and they lean more into like having a friendship with the client when they're still actively seeing them, but kind of benefiting from that power dynamic that exists because it's still their client. And unfortunately, we know there are incredibly unethical therapists that exist who take advantage of their clients and cross physical boundaries. They might take advantage of that power dynamic and engage in a sexual or physical relationship with their client, which is not okay. And your therapist should not be crossing that boundary with you. I want every therapy goer to hear me loud and clear when I say that no therapist should be making physical romantic advances towards you. They should not be asking you out on dates. They should not be trying to have a physical sexual relationship with you. That's not okay. It's taking advantage of our clients and it's taking advantage of the power dynamic that inherently exists. If you are ever in a situation where you feel like that line is being crossed, please know you can absolutely say no, walk out of the office, close your laptop if it's a virtual session. You have the power and choice to get yourself into a safe position if that comes up. The fourth sign that you might be getting bad therapy is that you feel misunderstood and judged by your therapist. Now, this can show up explicitly and implicitly. Explicitly being they might say something like, oh, are you sure it happened that way? That doesn't sound like it could even happen. Are you sure? Like really doubting your experience and not trusting that what you're bringing to the session is your reality. And instead of holding that positive, unconditional regard in the therapy space, they might shame you for some of the stuff that you bring into session. They might shame you for the very functional survival adaptations that have kept you afloat in your life. And they might tell you like, well, you shouldn't be doing that. You know better than that. Come on. That's not okay. They might directly invalidate your lived experience. For example, they might say something like, wow, it sounds like that traumatic event was really a blessing in disguise. I had a therapist say that to me once. I was like, bye. Or maybe the judgment shows up in more subtle ways, like in their body language or their tone of voice. If you're feeling judged or misunderstood in the therapeutic space, that's something that needs to be addressed. And if the therapist cannot facilitate an effective repair, then it might be time to find a new therapist. And last but not least, sign number 5 that you might be getting bad therapy is that your therapist dismisses your feedback. Let's say you notice that something feels off base, you don't like something your therapist said, and you use your voice and you advocate for yourself, and your therapist responds with something like, oh, well, that's not what I meant, I didn't mean it that way, or wow, I'm sorry you feel that way. That is not an appropriate way to accept feedback from our clients. When therapists respond that way to client feedback, to me, that means a handful of things. Maybe they're embarrassed, maybe they're defensive, maybe they believe they're superior to their client and they couldn't believe that their client could teach them something or provide that sort of feedback. I do a lot of feedback-informed treatment with my clients, meaning when I first meet with them at the end of the intake session, I let them know like, hey, I want to check in and see how this felt for you. Does this feel like a good match? Does it feel like a good therapeutic relationship? Is there anything that I said that felt off base or anything that just feels like it's not clicking? I want you to be honest with me because the more that I understand where you're coming from, the better that I can support you and show up effectively. And I'll usually check in at the end of our sessions and say, okay, how did today feel for you? Did anything feel off base? Did I get anything wrong? And when my clients do offer me some feedback, I say, okay, can you tell me more? And I really lean into curiosity. I want to know what their experience was of me so I can really witness their emotional and internal experience. And once they share with me, I might say something like, I really appreciate you opening up and letting me know that I got it wrong. I want you to know that I'm going to do better and I'm really sorry that that happened or that I said that thing. And then I'll let them know how I'm going to do better. And again, we just continue to get curious, like, okay, how does that land for you? How do you feel about us having this conversation? Just really slowing it down and understanding every micro moment of my misstep and how they experienced my misstep. So that's it for today. I hope this video was really helpful, and if you have any follow-up thoughts, feelings, comments, please drop them below. And if you liked this video or benefited from this video and you want to see more, please like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notifications so you can get notified when I post. It really helps me out, especially as I'm growing my YouTube channel right now. You can also follow me over on TikTok, which is Therapy by Gabby. That is where I post most consistently, just because it's much easier than editing a YouTube video, but there's a lot more content over there that I'm hoping to bring over to YouTube eventually. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.